Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Amin Sirius, and I'm going to create a little video here that I want to. We're working in conjunction with a piece I want to write for a new blog that I've put up with a friend of mine. I can put the link in the description below. And what this piece is all about, it's going to be in a series, and it's basically a refutation of an article that I read that was passed on to me by a friend. Now, this article appears in a blog which is called "It's Pronounced Metrosexual," and the article is called 30 Plus Examples of Male Privilege. The author's name is Sam Killerman. Now, Sam Killerman, I'm assuming, is a metrosexual. And I really don't know exactly what that means, but I don't really care. Now, I'm first going to read what he has written, a little short bio of himself at the bottom of the page. It says, Sam is a writer and performer who uses those skills as an ally to advance progress in the realms of LGBT equality and social justice. He tours the country speaking to college students about stereotypes, prejudice, and oppression, and writes for this site when he's at home in Austin, Texas. Now, judging by the photograph, I'd say he looks like a metrosexual too, so I'm sure he believes he is. Now, what this article is again a list of 30 plus examples of male privilege, and actually there's 35. And each example points out the privileges that males have. Now, I'm going to read first the introductory paragraph he has to this article. It says, following is a list of male privileges. If you are male and a man, that's right, he says male and a man. I'm not sure if you can be male and something else. I suppose you could be male and a dog. Maybe that's what he's talking about. He's just confirming that his audience, his intended audience, is human beings that are male. So if you are a male and a man, listed below are benefits that result from being born with that gender and sex. If you identify as a man, there's a good chance you've never thought about these things. Try and be more cognizant of these privileges in your daily life, and you'll understand how much work we have to do to make for a society that is equitable to all people, regardless of their gender. Now, I'm the target audience because I'm a man and I'm male, and apparently he believes that I've probably never heard of these privileges. I'm so privileged I don't even know my own privilege. And if that's true, well, let's see. Let's go through the list. I'm going to dedicate each of these videos and each article I write to one point and one point alone. I want to deconstruct it, turn it around, and see what's really going on here. So I'll start with number one. Number one says, if you have a bad day or are in a bad mood, people aren't going to blame it on your sex. I'll read it again. If you have a bad day or in a bad mood, people aren't going to blame it on your sex. So basically what he's saying here is that a privilege that a man has, and that he might be very unaware of even having, is that when a man is in a bad day or a bad mood, no one says, oh, it's because he's a man. No one goes, oh, Chris, he's in a bad mood again today, and but yeah, that's because he's a man. But apparently he believes women have this disadvantage. We have the privilege. The women are disadvantaged in that they don't have this privilege. And in fact, when a woman is having a bad day or in a bad mood, people often will say, "Oh, there's Alice again," but she's in a bad mood. But, women, it's because she's a woman. She's in a bad mood. Now, this is obviously a opinion piece. I mean, he's not, as far as I can tell, he's not listing any privileges that he can support the accuracy of through links and sources. Maybe there are some down the list later, but we'll get to them. This is definitely a personal piece. Maybe he has experienced this, and which is why he's saying it. I doubt he's just trying to pull it out of his ass to fill up space on his page. He's probably experienced this. But I want to be honest with everyone listening and say that I have never in my life, personally, ever blamed a woman's bad mood on her sex. I have never done that. I've never actually known anyone else to do that. Or have I ever been in the presence of someone making that claim? Oh, she's in a bad mood, but just because she's a woman, you know, she can't help it. No, I've never experienced that. And I challenge anyone listening to, give an example of when they have experienced this. I'm sure people have. I mean, I can't say nobody has. But I want to turn this around now and put it into a real light. One thing that a woman has that is biological and could never be experienced or used as an excuse or justification or blame is the biological process of menstruation. Women menstruate. And I'm sure everybody knows that menstruation of women is often related to bad moods. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that I bet you 100% of anyone listening to these words now has experienced at some point in their life or heard from other people that women often use the menstruation excuse to justify their bad behavior. A woman might become offensive, maybe even physically aggressive. Shout, yell, scream, cry. Your general bad mood. But turn around and say, I'm on my period. And not only will she use that excuse for herself, but other women and men may step aside, allow for that bad behavior, and excuse it by saying, just leave Alice alone. She's on her period. That is not a disadvantage for women. And it certainly is nowhere near the realm of privilege for a man, because obviously a man can't menstruate. That is an advantage to women. Women can excuse all of their bad behavior and justify it without any repercussions by simply saying, I'm on my period. It's that time of the month. This happens all too often. That is not a disadvantage, nor is it a privilege for men. That is a privilege for women and women alone, and they use that card. Now, it would be one thing if that was where it ended. That the privilege of a woman excusing her bad mood begins and ends with the biological fact that she menstruates. But I'm here to tell you that the privilege does not end there. In fact, I'm going to relate a personal experience that shows how a woman doesn't even need to be on her period in order to be excused of bad behavior. In fact, I believe that the greatest privilege that we can see here is that women can do whatever they want, scream and yell, curse and hit, and be excused simply because, yes, they are women. What happened to you? Well, Alice slapped me in the face. Oh my God, are you okay? Yeah, but it's okay. she's on her period. Or, you know, she's a woman. That is not a disadvantage. And no one's blaming her. Now, here's my personal experience. I recently been divorced, or almost divorced, and it's been a real pain when it comes to the custody of my son. I'm not going to go into a lot of details, but at this point I do have custody of my son, and I thank God for that. And there was one instance not too long ago, I would say about 3 months ago, where I was taking my son home from school. But before I had left the school, I received this sudden phone call, unexpected phone call, from a female friend of mine who works at a cafe that I used to go to, occasionally. I have a long history with that cafe. And she said to me, "Chris, there's an old friend of yours here, and he'd really like to see you. He asked me to call you and he'd try to convince you to come down." Now, alarm bells went off, and I'm going to explain why. This old friend of mine I had not seen in 2 to 3 years. I not just not seen, I hadn't spoken a single word to this man in 2 to 3 years. And he just so happens to be married, and still married to this day, to a very close friend of my ex. Now, it was very unusual to get this request from a man I hadn't seen. At the time, my wife wanted to take my son for the weekend, but I used my better judgment and thought the timing, for all sorts of reasons, was not good, and I didn't want her to take him. And the main reason basically was that I was afraid she was going to take him away from me as soon as she was out of my sight, take him, and not just take him away, but to an entire other part of the country, which would take 2 hours by plane to visit. And I was justified in feeling this because she had done this before. So alarm bells went off. But in the end, against my better judgment, I said, all right, why don't I go? I haven't seen this guy in a while. What's the worst that could happen? Now, when I arrived, my son had fallen asleep on the way, so I laid him down on the sofa, let him sleep while I socialized with my old friend, and it was nice conversation with him and about 6 other of his friends. But lo and behold, about 20 minutes later, and later I found out because a phone call was made by the wife of my friend to my ex. 20 minutes later, my ex comes waltzing through the door as I sit there with my son, trying to have a calm time socializing with these people. When she came in, it was unbelievable. She screamed, she yelled, she caused a huge scene, demanding to take my son away, demanding for me to get out of her way. I want to see my son, I'm taking him. She screamed and yelled. She scared away 7 people, an entire table of patrons who were paying customers, got up, asked for the bill, and left because of her behavior, her childish, infantile behavior. Now, I had put my son, when she had come, I quickly grabbed my son and I put him in the office where my friend was working. I closed the door and I stood between my ex-wife and the door, and I said, calm down. If you want to discuss what we can do with our son today, you need to calm down. We need to step outside, away from the premise, and figure this out. She refused, flat out refused. She started smashing on the door, pushing me, being physical. I pleaded with the staff. I pleaded with the security guard. I pleaded with the manager, who were both male. I also pleaded with kitchen staff, with waitresses who were female. Please, remove this woman from your premise. She is disturbing the cafe and causing paying customers to leave. Tell her to meet me outside. You need to help me. Not a single finger was raised. Not a single finger was raised. The looks on these people's faces as they watched, utterly helpless, at this woman destroying the peaceful environment of this cafe and upsetting the atmosphere. Nothing was done. And you know why nothing was done? I'm going to go out on a limb here and say because it's the female privilege of being able to be an absolute cunt and get away with it and have it be justified, not only by yourself but everyone around you, simply because of your sex. I really fail to see how that is a disadvantage. Now, if it was me who had come into that cafe, screaming, yelling, flailing my arms, pushing people, cursing, everyone listening to this knows that I would have been ejected in a heartbeat. I would have been physically removed from the premise and maybe banned from coming back for a period of time. And why? Well, because I'm not a woman. Now, this, my friends, is what we call privilege. And I will say it again, a woman can go in to a public place, scream, yell, be physical, be abusive, be in a bad mood, or have a bad day, and everything she does has no repercussions, no consequences. She gets away completely with no responsibility simply because of her sex. No, they don't blame her bad mood on her sex. They justify it on her sex. And you know what? Whether or not she was on her period that day would not have even mattered. And in fact, it never came up. So even the privilege of using your monthly menstruation as an excuse for your assholishness doesn't depend solely on menstruation. It depends completely on the fact that you're a woman. Now, Mr. Sam Killerman pronounced metrosexual. Point number one of male privilege, that if you are a man, probably never even knew you had, according to his introductory paragraph. Again, number one, if you have a bad day or in a bad mood, people aren't going to blame it on your sex. There you go, ladies and gentlemen, the number one on his list of male privilege. No, I'm sorry, pal. No man has that privilege. Not a single man. And I want to now rewrite that in the correct way. In the way that everyone in the reality that we live in can understand. The number one privilege on my list of the 30 plus examples of female privilege is this. As a woman, if you have a bad day or are in a bad mood, people are going to justify it based on your sex. Again, if you have a bad day or are in a bad mood, people are going to justify your behavior based on your sex. Female privilege number one. This privilege, my friends, does not belong to a male or a man. All right. I think that gets my point across. I'm going to sign out. I'm Amin Sirius. Thank you for listening. I got 34 more of these to go. Cheers.